All right, hello, good morning, everybody. A couple minutes till class time, so welcome back. Good to see you guys. Feel free to say hello. In just a few moments, we'll get started. Good morning, Megan. Nice to see you. Hi, Eva. Okay. Hey, Kelly. Nice to see all you guys. Hopefully you're having a nice early, fresh start to the day. Good morning, guys. Hi, Celine, Drew, Lucy, and all the rest. Nice to see you guys today. Cool. Okay, guys, so it's pretty much 9 a.m. Therefore, I'm going to let us get started. Welcome back. You guys are doing well. So quick question just to start off the meeting. Have some of you guys noticed the essay prompts that I mailed out, I think Monday afternoon? Who can tell me if you did receive it, just so I know? And then, okay, good. So you guys have gotten it. It's just sent through Canvas to everybody. So if any got it, then everybody got it. If you haven't checked out the prompts yet or haven't had a chance to look at them, I invite you to go ahead and take a look, because you still have 2 weeks to do it. I adjusted the due date just slightly. If you noticed in the syllabus, it was originally listed for the 28th, and I just moved it to Wednesday the 30th. So you have until Wednesday the 30th, that's 2 weeks from today, to create this essay, and it's 3 to 4 pages. I'm just going to go over the basics of the essay prompt one time with you guys right now while we're all here together, to kind of just talk you through what to expect and how to have a successful assignment. So, and then we'll go back over into our lecture notes for the day. So what I'm looking at the on my screen, I'm looking at the prompts right now, and I'll just read off as I'm reading it from the beginning. It says, you must write a 3 to 4 page essay, double-spaced. Sorry for the typo, double use of the word essay. Oops. So anyway, you must write a 3 to 4 page double-spaced essay on one of these topics below in 12-point font with normal margins. So first thing that's discussed then in the description of the prompt is the format guidelines. And they're pretty straightforward and basic. Those are the ones that I just read. So first of all, 3 to 4 pages is the page length. For the upper and lower boundaries. So if you feel that you're getting close to the 4-page upper limit and you have more to say, or you think you can add some more to make the essay stronger, it's okay in my mind if you go over 4 pages. So don't worry about exceeding the page length on the top bound. That's flexible and that's not a problem. But if you have less than 3 pages on the lower boundary, that's more of an issue, because to discuss all these different concepts that the prompt mentions, it's not really going to be possible to do it in a sufficiently detailed way if you don't have at least 3 pages, I would imagine. So just basically understand that when it says 3 to 4 pages, it's fine if it's 3 or 4. If you go over 4, that's not a problem either. But if it's less than 3, it's probably going to lack detail, and so I would advise that you don't go less than 3. That's more of a hard boundary, the lower one, and the top one's more flexible. Okay. Now it says double-spaced, which, yes, it has to be a double-spaced essay in 12-point font. So basically I'm saying that because I don't want anybody to try and get to the page length minimum by making the letters bigger or by creating more blank space on the page where there's no writing. So just, it can't be more than double spaced. Also, it can't be single spaced because then you'd be writing twice as much. And you can't make the font size larger than 12. So that's just standard for everybody. The other thing it says is that it has to be with normal margins. So don't make the margins different from the default in your word processor. You have to imagine as a professor, when you get hundreds, even thousands of essays over the years given to you, you see all kinds of little things that students will do, and I'm just trying to prevent those things that I don't like. One thing that no professor likes is when it appears that the student is struggling to reach the minimum page length requirement and is doing all kinds of little tricks to make the letters bigger or make the font much larger, make the margins bigger, make more spacing, create a giant title with a big header, a ton of font. So really, I just want substantial writing of 3 to 4 pages according to these simple format guidelines. It also says you're picking one of the 2 prompts, and that's true. You got to just pick one of the 2, not to write on both. I know that that's probably clear enough, but oh, good, Celine. Yeah, I see your question now, so I'm addressing that. You don't write on both, just one of the 2 prompts, whichever one you think you understand or are more interested in. Which one you understand better or are more interested in, but not to write on both. In the past, there have been a couple of cases where students were confused on that and wrote on both, which makes a problem for the grading of it, because if you try to compress both topics into 3 to 4 pages, it's definitely going to be very sketchy. So it'll probably not be enough information on either author, but at the same time, it's going to be too much because I'm only asking for one of the 2 prompts. So yeah, pick the one that you prefer, and then do not write on the other one, just one out of the 2 exactly. Okay, good. Default margins, in Microsoft Word, which I think is most often the word processor that a lot of people use, it's simply just not to adjust anything. Use default margins. I believe it is 1 inch, that's right. And so it's due to me as an email attachment, an attached file in an email from you to me. You guys know my email address is what even is it? Is vulich@chapman.edu. Okay, so vulich@chapman.edu. When you're done with your paper, you're going to mail it to me, and you just got to make sure that I receive it before 9 a.m. on Wednesday the 30th. When I do get it from you, I'll make sure to send you a confirmation email that confirms that I received it. So make sure that you get that from me so that you know there was no issues with the submission or with the failure to delivery or whatever. So that's just format guidelines. Now, from the standpoint of the format, everyone's paper should look the same visually. Sometimes in life, and I'm a big believer in this, you should be the one unique individual that you are, stand out from the crowd, right? And embrace your individualism. But in this one case, you want to fit right into the crowd and you don't want to stand out. If your paper looks different because it has big goofy letters or a ton of spacing or whatever, it's going to be singled out and it's going to receive negative criticism for that. So don't just fly right under the radar, huh? Everyone's paper is going to look the same, and if yours doesn't, it's going to be a problem for you. So make sure your paper just has 12-point font, normal margins, and it's 3 to 4 pages with double-spaced writing. Now, the other thing that it mentions there, of course, in the prompt directions is that you can't use any electronic resources when you're writing this paper. And that's very important. You're not allowed to use anything that you found anywhere in the whole universe except for this textbook that I'm holding here in my hand. It's just this textbook, your class notes, and your own good common sense and reason. But you're not supposed to go out there into the world of the internet and try to find anybody's viewpoint, anybody's analysis, or anything else. If you read those things for your own, just edification and insight, that's, of course, fine and probably to be expected. But I don't want any of that stuff to find its way into your writing. And I trust that you wouldn't ever plagiarize a paper or whatever, but we all have to verify that as professors. And I'm just trying to make sure that it's clear to you in advance that that's not tolerated and we don't accept it and all of that. So don't turn in a paper that has any material that you did not yourself compose, not from any other student, not from any other source of information. Yeah, so it's easy enough. I want you to, if you could, yeah, you can refer back to the videos from class, sure. But when you cite things like in your essay, you'll be just citing the textbook. Now, Yeah, so you want to make sure that you stick to that rule. Don't use anything off the internet. This is a class that, in that sense, is kind of old school. I want you guys to just know that for thousands and thousands of years, the vast majority of human history, we didn't have anything such thing as the internet or computers at all. So pretend that this class you're taking it 200 years ago, and there's no such thing as the internet, and who knows what that is and if it will ever even exist. Okay? Now, you don't need a works cited page because the only work that you're allowed to use is the textbook. Therefore, I think it would just be redundant and unnecessary for everybody to have to make mention of the book on a bibliography page. But I do have a basic rules for how you cite the text. So everyone should probably include at least a few quotes in their essay from time to time to give support for what they're analyzing and to provide reference to the text. So when you have quotes that you incorporate into your essay, what I would ask is simply that you place the quoted passage in quotation marks, right? So enclose it in quote marks. And then after the quoted passage, put the page number that the quote was taken from the book in parentheses. So just parenthetical page citation for any quoted passages in the essay itself, and no supplemental bibliography or works cited will be needed, okay? So it's just basically a very streamlined reference method. You're going to just put the page number in parentheses from whatever page the quoted section is from. You may use quotes, of course, and you should probably at times. If you have an extremely close paraphrase that doesn't borrow the verbatim language of the textbook, but you still think you'd like to credit the book, then you can also give a page number reference for something like that. But since you're not going to be using outside sources, it's not a research paper like that, then I wouldn't require a bibliography. Bibliography is a more normal thing to do when, like, the professor says, here, you have to write a research paper, and I just want to know where you got your sources from. So they want to see if you read like 3 or 4 articles online or you found other books, where did you get your references from? But since this essay is not a full research paper, it's kind of a short topic focused prompt essay, and you only have one book, there's no need for all of that. It would just be a waste of additional energy for you. So yes, include quotes. Yes, cite those quotes, but all you have to do for that is put them in quote marks and give the page number at the end of the quoted passage in parentheses. Okay. Now, people always ask me this stuff about MLA and APA, and I'm not the one to really ask that question to, because I don't really even know what either of those things are. I'm a published author. I've published books, essays, and everything, but your English professors will tell you all about that. To me, the format guidelines are just the things that I put in this prompt. So it's got to be 12-point font. It's got to have normal double spacing, and the margins have to be normal, and 3 to 4 pages. Let me tell you a little bit about the header, though. Maybe that's what some are wondering about. So what I like in a student essay is to have it just get straight to the writing without a whole bunch of extra information given on the first page. So I don't like it if, for example, a student lists, name, date, class, professor, student ID number, social security number, campus name, height, age, weight, and then finally 20-point font, giant title. And now we're starting to write, but we're like 3/4 of the way down the first page. That's not a page of writing. That's a bunch of information, but it's not analysis. So what I prefer is that you just have a minimalist header on the first page. Or I'll give you a second option, but let's talk about option number 1, minimalist header. So just in normal 12-point font, your name, and then in normal font, and then just the first line of the first paragraph following after that. So it'll get started close to the top of page 1. Now, if you want to have a little bit more flair and you want to have, a lot of information and a big splashy title, that's okay. But then in that case, I want you guys to create, anybody who does that, I would like to create a cover page, a title page, which has all that stuff. And then at the first page of actual writing, it'll start at the top. Okay, so you can either have a minimalist header with just a few lines of info, or you can have more information than that, but then you'll create a cover page. Okay. So that's just some format stuff. Are we all good so far on all of that? You guys good to go on that? Just let me know, and then I can discuss the prompts themselves, okay? So yeah, and I told you about the guideline that you're not supposed to go online for any source of information. It's all from the book, from the lectures, and from your own good reason and common sense. You can read things on your own that may support your understanding, but you're not to bring any of the language into the text of your essay. If this could be taken, if you could write this on a typewriter, I would love that. But there's no such way to do that, of course. So this computer that you're using right now, it's like a glorified electronic typewriter that can't even web browse. Okay, can you say what you said about the minimalist header again? I'm just saying that I don't want a lot of information on the front page. Name, date, title, all in 12-point font, and then start writing right after that. Or if you don't want to do that, then you're going to create a cover page. And the cover page can be as weird with a bunch of stuff as you want. You understand? I just don't want it to be that the first page of what should be writing is like a half page of titles, names, and other identifying information, which sometimes can happen. Okay, we are expected to analyze the arguments we choose and then form our own opinion. Well, I'm about to talk about that, Megan, so you got to give me a second, and we're going to get to the prompts right now. The first thing, though, is to get the format clarified and clear for everybody. Okay, so now we're going to go over the 2 prompts. Notice also it's worth 15% of your grade, this first essay. That's the smallest weight of the 4 things in the class, but you want to start off on the right foot and try to do well. So, okay, now here's the 2 prompts. And good question, Megan. Now we're segueing right into that. So the way that prompts are structured is they're both on the philosophy of religion topic, and they both are basically like compare and contrast of 2 of the arguments for the existence of God together with objections to the 2 arguments. And it just depends which essay prompt you choose, depends on what 2 arguments you'd rather report on. So if you choose to report on prompt number 1, then the 2 arguments are going to be the ontological argument and Pascal's wager. And if you choose to report on prompt 2, then you're choosing to report on the cosmological argument and argument from design. So let me read off the first one. The first says, discuss the ontological argument and Pascal's wager. Oh my goodness. Come on, Eddie. He's trying to drink my beverage, whatever. Okay. So if you write the first one, it says, discuss the ontological argument and Pascal's wager, okay, and provide 2 objections to each. Is one of the arguments better than the other? If so, why? If not, why not? Okay, now let me just go over that line by line in detail. The first part of the prompt says, discuss the ontological argument and Pascal's wager. Okay, so for that part of the essay, you're going to want to just break down the 2 arguments. You're going to explain how they work. You're going to, explain to the reader in a way that the reader who's never heard of these arguments would be able to understand what they are. So, the reader reads this, having never been exposed to the 2 arguments, and when they finish reading it, they now understand what the author's argument for the existence of God was. So in the ontological argument, you guys know it's written by Anselm. He says that the definition of God is greatest conceivable being. He says everyone has that same definition in their mind, whether they're an atheist or a theist. And since it's greater to exist in both the mind and in reality than just the mind alone, God must exist in both, because if he didn't, he wouldn't be the greatest conceivable being, but that's the definition. And then he can't be even thought not to exist, and all of the other parts of the argument, right? So you'd go into great detail on that, and you'd expand on it and explain it point by point. Pascal's wager, okay? Now, I want to give you guys a little bit more detail on Pascal's wager just after I finish with this little description of the prompts. But Pascal's wager is the one that says it's just better for you to believe in God because you really have nothing to lose by believing, but you have a lot that you could gain. On the other hand, if you don't believe in God, it's much more risky because if you're wrong, then you might go to hell or just be denied heaven. But if you're correct, you don't even win or gain anything. So why choose not to believe when if you are right, you don't get anything, and if you're wrong, you lose everything. But if you choose to believe, then if you're right, you win everything, and if you lose nothing. So he says it's just basically about taking a more risk-averse approach to how you're going to choose what to believe. It's a wager, basically, in his mind. Now, after you explain the 2 arguments, it says provide 2 objections to each. And we're talking about the scholarly objections, that we've studied in the book. So when it comes to Anselm's ontological argument, we did talk about 3 different objections at least. Number 1, there was Gaunilo and the Lost Island example. Number 2, there was G.E. Moore and the whole point that existence is not a predicate. And then there was William Rowe, who said that you can't just attempt to prove that a thing exists by defining it as existing. And there's examples involved in all of those different authors' objections. So, you could pick 2 objections and point them towards the ontological argument. And then there's also 2 objections that you'll have to mention for the Pascal's wager. Now, the objections to the Pascal's wager, one of them could be the Clifford article, W.K. Clifford. It's wrong to believe anything without having sufficient evidence. Because, Pascal says that you should believe in God even if there's no evidence at all, just because it's better off if you're right. And Clifford thinks that that's not the right reason to believe something, that you should only believe things if there's sufficient evidence to back it up. So that's one possible objection. And the other one you could use could be Robert McKim. His essay, though, we're going to get to either later today or at the beginning on Friday. So we'll have to hold the full discussion of the other author objection until then. But anyway, that's the deal with prompt 1. Now, it says at the end of the prompt, is one of the arguments better than the other? If so, why? And if not, why not? What's being asked there is, between the ontological argument and Pascal's wager, are one of those two arguments better than the other one? If so, tell me which one you thought was the better one and why. Meaning, which one's more plausible, more persuasive, compelling to you? Which one makes the better case for believing in God? And when you say which one is better, you have to give like a philosophically sophisticated reason. You can't just be like, well, Anselm, you know, his name starts with A, and I love names that start with A, so for me, he's the better author. You know, that would be irrelevant. It's got to be some reason why his argument is a superior argument. So you have to kind of get into the logic of the argument and explain why it had greater appeal to your judgment. Okay. Now, if you think that one of them is better, then you're going to tell me which one and why. But also, some may think that I don't find either one better. You know, you might say, well, they're both equally weak or equally strong. If you feel that way, then that's okay. And then in that case, you have to tell me why you had that reaction instead. So it says, if you do not think one of the arguments is better than the other, then you'll have to justify that reaction too at the end. So the last part of the essay is kind of the student's independent judgment coming into the paper. The first part is all explanation of the arguments and to fully expose what those arguments are and what the objections are. And then the final part of the essay is where you will render your own judgment on which was the better one, if either. And if neither was, then you'll give some kind of analysis as to why not. Okay, so that would be your first essay prompt if you choose to write on topic 1. If you choose to write on topic 2, then it's just the same kind of prompt, except instead of ontological argument and Pascal's wager, it's the cosmological argument and the argument from design. So it says, discuss the cosmological argument and the argument from design and provide 2 objections to each. Is one of the arguments better than the other? Okay, if so, which one and why? And if not, why not? So yeah, that's just another option for you. If you want to write on that one, then you're talking about cosmological argument and argument from design. The cosmological argument says that there's a principle of sufficient reason that's been stated in light of the sphere example, and the principle says that anything that's true, there had to be a cause for it. The contingent and necessary truths are mentioned, you know about those, and the universe is a contingent truth. So the principle says there must be a cause for it, but it can't cause itself. And if it was caused by something contingent, that wouldn't work either, because that would simply allow an infinite regress, which is thought to be impossible. So there must be a necessary being that's not contingent, which is the foundation of the whole causal sequence. And that's, you know, that's Richard Taylor. William Paley gave the argument from design, which is the one involving the watch and the notion that something like a watch, which has a detailed assembly of parts and the ability to perform a function, would have had to have a maker with some intelligence. And then that is used as an analogy to the example that things in nature have purpose and function also. So they must have had a creator, which would be God. Now, 2 objections to each. The objections to those arguments will best be found in the writing of Ernest Nagel and his essay, Does God Exist? So he criticized the cosmological argument in several ways. He said, it's not clear that everything has to have a cause, but even if they did, then why doesn't God have to have one? And if God doesn't have to have one, then why couldn't we just say itself? And the last point he made is that an infinite regress does not even seem impossible. So that's a host of objections. And then in reply to the design argument, he also had some criticisms. He said, the real reason we know the watch has a maker has more to do with the fact that we make them, not so much that they have a function. And concerning the function of the things that we see in nature, they can also be explained according to a different idea, which is the theory of evolution. And that doesn't involve the notion of a creator. So the analogy of the watch, things that are man-made with a purpose, and the eye, things that are in nature that have a purpose or function, the analogy is really weak, because the explanation of the function on the side of the nature stuff can be given by means of evolution. And the function seen in the man-made stuff isn't even the real key indicator that it's man-made. So that would be his objections to that. And then again, as we said before, you'd tell me which of the arguments was the better one. Or if you didn't think that one was better, you'd have to say why not. Now, The last thing I want to say then, as I'm finishing up this little debriefing on the essay prompts, is that the style of writing in philosophical essays and stuff is a little different than maybe the typical English essay that a lot of you have written in classes like these. And there's just this one difference. So when you write English essays, a lot of times I know that the teacher wants to emphasize to you the format of the English essay. You know, they're trying to get you in the habit of strong, clear thesis in the first paragraph, intro, then you develop the thesis in all the body paragraphs, and then you summarize and conclude in a concluding paragraph. So it's like intro, body paragraphs, conclusion. Well, in this type of class, it's really more essential to just get straight to the argument and get into those body paragraphs. I actually think that a lot of philosophy professors dislike the kind of long-winded opening intro that some student essays have in like English classes. Sometimes that's just filler, and it doesn't really count as, you know, analyzing the argument. So, you know, an essay that opens up like this is perhaps not the best. Someone's like, God and religion, it's something ancient, it's been with mankind. We've pondered these eternal questions forever. What is life? What is the afterlife? Is there such a thing? Who knows? Well, it divides people, it tears societies apart, and sometimes it builds them up.